I mean, is it simply about global risk aversion that both indices are down? You know, we spoke to Constantine Chimakura the other day and he said, no, it's internal issues in Zimbabwe that's weighing down on this market.
We tend to have a different view. We believe that it has more to do with the turmoil in global markets. You know, the internal issues that people cite when they talk about Zimbabwe tend to be indigenization and the possibility of elections early next year. And I think those issues have been around for some time, and the market was trading significantly higher. But I think since we've seen this turmoil in global capital markets over the last month or so, the market has really taken a beating. So we believe that it has more to do with the turmoil in Europe and other developed markets.
Obviously, we're all watching and waiting to see what European leaders come up with by way of a new and a fresh injection for a stability package for Europe, and hopefully that will create a different sentiment in the coming weeks. For Zimbabwe, though, what works in the country's favor? I mean, macroeconomically, we're talking about growth rates closer to 9% and inflation that's still in single digits, but we're starting to see it trending upwards for September, coming in at 4.3%. So is everything really well?
Yes, we think the increase in inflation to 4.3% has a lot to do with the electricity tariff hike that we saw in September of 31%, which we think is a once-off event. There isn't enough demand in the market to sustain higher rates of inflation. We believe that this is really a once-off month-on-month jump in inflation of 0.8% that we saw as a result of the tariff hike.
All right, which are the counters we should be talking about in terms of seeing where the opportunities lie? Delta announcing its report for the first half, their interim results. That's going to be on the 7th of November. What are you expecting for this particular company, Rufaro?
Delta is the biggest company on the ZSE by market cap, and it will be very closely watched, and the numbers will be highly anticipated. Our forecast for the 2012 financial year is 5.9 cents, which makes it one of the cheapest breweries in sub-Saharan Africa on a forward PE basis. We believe that when they do come to the market with their interim numbers, they will show that they are enjoying strong earnings growth and strong revenue growth, and that the story on the ground in terms of the Zimbabwean economy is still very encouraging in spite of the overall weakness that we're seeing on the market.
Right. I mean, Delta is not just also one of the biggest counters. We do have others like ICO and also like Econet. What we've seen is some of the blue chip counters declining progressively over the last few weeks. The gains are generally on the small cap side. Is that still the trend, and why is that?
Yes, that is still the trend. What we've seen on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange since dollarization, and more so in 2011 this year, is that it has been dominated by foreign investors, both on the buy side and the sell side, but foreign investors tended to be net buyers. And because of the volatility and turmoil in the bigger capital markets, we have seen a lot of risk aversion and money being withdrawn, and foreigners lately, particularly the last few weeks, have been net sellers of shares. So this is what underpins the weakness that we see in the big blue chips, your Delta, your Econet, your Inscore. And whereas on the local front, the smaller caps and the mid caps were dominated by local pension funds and institutions, and the demand for those, we still see that.
Right. Tell us about Kingdom Financial Holdings. We know that they've had a few issues inside of Zimbabwe, so they delisted, but they went ahead, listed in London. They want to come back onto the Zimbabwean bourse, and as a result, a rights issue, but 55% subscription. What is this indicative of? Some of the fundamentals within Kingdom, or just the general market where it's difficult to raise capital?
I think it speaks more to the market being a difficult place to raise capital, particularly in the banking sector. They had indicated that they were hoping to relist on the ZSE by the end of this year, but with the limited success of their rights issue, maybe this process might take a bit longer for them to raise capital until they're at a place where they're comfortable relisting.
All right, as you look at the week ahead, I mean, it's really a short week, or just one day left. So going forward into the next week, what could we see coming out of the Zimbabwean Stock Exchange? Anything exciting?
We think volumes will continue to come off. I think the trend has been downward, and we don't see that changing going into next week. I think the developments this weekend in Europe will be very closely watched. And if something positive comes out of those deliberations, maybe in a few weeks, it might trickle down to our market. But I think next week, certainly going into next week, and probably the week after that, we think it will be quiet.